Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and it's great to see such a great turnout for this rally for our leader, Andrew Wilkinson. This is a leader who is looking forward to being the next Premier of British Columbia. He's here to prove he knows where the interior of BC is. And please join me by honking your horns and welcoming Andrew Wilkinson.
Well, folks, we have to have some rules for this game or it's going to get really noisy and really messy. So when you hear something you like, you can just tap your horn. When you hear something you really like, you lean on the horn. So let's try it out. Nice day today, what do you think? And is Jackie Taggart the best MLA that Fraser-Nicola has ever had in human history? And did Ben Stewart and the gang from Kelowna West come over just for this? So folks, we've got work to do. We're in an election. There's a truck full of signs here that need to get out and put up so that we can convince the folks to vote for us. But they don't vote for us just for fun. They don't vote for us just because we're here. They need a reason. And let's talk about this community of Merritt, Fraser-Nicola, and what's been going on for the last few years. John Horgan came up here for the 2017 election, stood in front of the Tolko Mill in Merritt, and said there'll be no mill closures under the NDP. We got an NDP government in 2017, courtesy of the Green Party. 45 mill closures in the last 3 years. 12 of them permanent. 10,000 jobs lost. Communities torn apart. Places like Chasm, Isle Pierre, Vavenby will probably cease to exist. 100 Mile House, Williams Lake, Mackenzie, they're in trouble. Why? Because John Horgan couldn't be bothered to put together a proper forest policy. So, do you think John Horgan did a good job of being accountable for forest policy in BC? Should we give John Horgan a big reminder that it's time to show some respect to the interior of British Columbia? Because that's what it's about. It's about respect. I grew up in Kamloops. This Ponderosa country between here and Kamloops, up through Tunkwa and all those lakes we used to fish in, the Chattaways, this is home to me. And growing up in the interior, you know that it's a special place. It's a part of the world where people live because they want to. People love this land. Just talking to the owners here, there's a section of land here that runs down to the river in hay and alfalfa, cow-calf operation. This is a whole way of life that needs support. Do not let government jerk around your way of life. Can we agree on that? So let's think of what we can do to carry on this way of life, to thrive here in the interior. And there are a few things that go into that. First of all is respect for ranchers and farmers. Anybody in for that? And we're going to be talking about water rights and trespass rules to help out farmers and ranchers because they get a little tired of being told how to run their affairs. And they get a little tired of having the NDP come along and tell them how big a house they're allowed to have, or whether they're allowed to change any use of the land, whether they're even allowed to make an application for that. So we'll be standing up for farmers and ranchers, and we want you to support us in that work. And let's talk about another big part of the interior economy, the resource industries. This is going to be an easy one. Guess what passes just over there and goes up through those mountains? It did since 1953. It's called the Trans Mountain Pipeline. I grew up next to it in Kamloops, safely carrying fuel to service the people of British Columbia. And guess what happened on its 65th birthday, when it's time to retire the old one and replace it with a new one? when it's time to get all those rail cars out of the Fraser Canyon, what did the NDP say? They're going to use every tool in the toolbox to block replacement of a critically important pipeline. Is that a little crazy? So what do? They spend millions of your dollars on lawyers. They organize these bogus protests. They block the roads. They block the rail tracks. And they say, we're going to use that toolbox to go to Ottawa, the Supreme Court of Canada, and get the ruling. They lose at trial. They lose in the Court of Appeal, 5-0. They go to Ottawa, and the Supreme Court of Canada says, right away, no waiting, 9-0, you lose. A total waste of 2 years and millions of dollars to accomplish nothing and to keep rail cars carrying oil down the Fraser Canyon. So if you think that's a little bit crazy, let's hear some noise. Let me tell you something else that they need to spend some time figuring out. Here comes a truck. Tell me, are those logs on that truck? And is that a legitimate part of the British Columbia economy that needs to be protected and supported? Are you a little tired of hearing that John Horgan, 5 days after he got sworn in, was going to go to Washington, D.C. and solve the softwood lumber problem? All he brought back was a big fat check from the Steelworkers Union. Has anything happened on the lumber accord? Nothing. When we were in government, when I was responsible for that file with Mike de Jong and Rich Coleman, we solved the softwood lumber dispute and got British Columbians the due compensation that they needed for doing that work in our forest industry. Is that a better approach than John Horgan? And maybe it's time that our stumpage system caught up with the rest of Canada. Alberta changes the stumping price every month, according to market prices. British Columbia, once a year. So there's a big lag, and it's always wrong, and it never works for the industry. And have the NDP done anything about that when it was brought to their attention? They've done nothing. When's the last time you heard of John Horgan making a visit to a forest community in British Columbia? I don't know of any. And he's certainly not coming to the closed mills in Kelowna, the closed mills in Mackenzie, the closed mills in Prince George, the town of Quesnel, which is having its heart ripped out because the forest industry is in trouble. But do the NDP ministers show up? Nobody's anywhere in sight because they don't want any bad news. They're going to go back down to the coast where they think the votes are, and they're going to tell you to just mind your own business. Don't bother asking the NDP. Now, we have a little different approach. And we say this every day in this campaign. Our job, our role as a constituency MLA like Jackie is to represent everybody who lives in Fraser-Nicola, from Hope, from Lillooet, from Lytton, from Merritt, Spence's Bridge, Princeton. The whole riding has to be represented by Jackie. Doesn't matter who you voted for. That's her job. Same thing with my riding down in Vancouver. But the NDP have this idea. They only represent the people who voted for them. There are 5 million of us in this province, and we expect to be represented by our premier all the time on every issue, not just the ones that suit him or that he thinks are going to be popular when it comes to vote time. So you tell me, do you think it's the job of your government to represent everybody in this province and look out for everybody's best interests? So, for anybody who's asking about a permit for a truck-based rally of people honking horns in the Nicola Valley, just tell them, mind your own business, you know, you're supposed to represent us, not obstruct us. This is a non-permit event, right, Jackie? Yeah. Horn honking is still not illegal in British Columbia, just like everything else is. So let's talk about mining for a minute. What's the name of the mine just up the hill?
Highland Valley Copper.
Highland Valley Copper. And who operates Highland Valley Copper?
Teck.
And who's the biggest employer in your riding?
Highland Valley Copper.
And what do we want to do to make sure that Highland Valley Copper can continue to do business, can continue to prosper, can work this land and then when the time comes reclaim the land and make it look just as beautiful as it was in the first place. We want to make sure mining can prosper in British Columbia. Modern mining is a highly paid, highly technical, and very environmentally responsible line of work. And we want those mines in British Columbia, and we need to do what is necessary to make sure their permitting goes smoothly, to make sure they operate cleanly, and make sure that they are good corporate citizens. And I'll tell you from our perspective, they are great corporate citizens. So do we want viable, strong mining companies in British Columbia? So let's go back to where we started. This is about respect. It's about knowing the way of life that people come from. It's a big difference between West Kelowna and Spence's Bridge and Fort St. John and Terrace. These are very different communities, but there's a real beating heart amongst them. And I'll tell you, we drove up today, and you come over the crest of Coquihalla, you come into Merritt, and suddenly everybody you meet just gives you a piece of their mind. It's kind of refreshing compared to the city where people are a little more quiet in their views. But on the main streets of Merritt, you know right away what everybody thinks because they say, aren't you? And you say, you better say yes because you don't want to hide it. And you say, yes, of course, and this is your great MLA, Jackie Taggart. And they say, well, this is what you need to do about boom. And I'll tell you, it is a delight. It's one of those things where you don't have to agree on everything all the time, but coming through the trucks here and getting to the front of the stage here, I got 7 opinions on 16 things, and it's great to hear what people think. That's my job, that's her job, that's Ben Stewart's job, and that's what every BC Liberal MLA will do for their career, is listen to people with respect and come to the best possible conclusion to advance the interests of the people of British Columbia. Is that okay with you? Now, I understand that if we're fortunate enough to form a government in about 6 weeks, that you'll actually be able to get a vehicle with a bigger horn because there won't be any PST on motor vehicles other than luxury tax. So what do you think about that? Anybody looking for a new car? Ben, the 2-year-old, is getting excited when you talk about a bigger truck. You can get out of the Kubota and get in a truck once you drop the PST. Anyway, the point is, we have a tough spot right now. I think everybody here knows the COVID numbers. They're not going down. It's not going away. Ontario, Quebec, Alberta are seeing rapidly rising case counts. Meeting sizes are being shrunk. Bars and restaurants are being closed. We're in a tough spot, folks. British Columbia has done well this year in COVID because of all the work that you have done. What we do, wearing masks, being distant, being careful, because nobody wants to be spreading disease around. So we need to keep that work up of protecting British Columbians from COVID. But we've also got to think in very real terms, what happens after COVID? Because right now, you know people in the restaurant trade, in tourism, people who work for airlines. They are scared to death right now because some of them, like in the airlines, haven't worked for 6 months. They live on federal transfer checks, and they say, that's not the way of life I want. I want to be self-sufficient. I want a job. I want a purpose. I want goals. I want to be able to look over the horizon and say, I'm going to get there. And in tourism, we've seen just a dreadful summer. I talked to the woman who runs the BC Bear Viewing Association back in May. She said 0 revenue this summer, total shutdown. Returned all the deposits. They're in the hole. The chance of opening in 2021 and welcoming back all those German and Japanese tourists is pretty low. So we have to stick together as a community. We've got to make it possible for these tourism operators to survive because they're good, strong businesses that provide good, strong jobs for families all over BC. And we can't just see them fail. And what we saw from John Horgan, this is sad. Think back into June and July. You heard economic recovery plans announced Quebec, Ontario, Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. What happened in British Columbia? Nothing. They said, don't worry, it's coming. They got some business groups to advise them. Vancouver Board of Trade, BC Business Council, BC Chamber of Commerce. You know what they did? They ignored them. So they put out their own reports. The one on July 29th from BC Business Council said, well, nothing's happening with government, so we better put our own ideas forward. We better make our own suggestions. They're the ones who suggested we cut provincial sales tax in half for 2 years. So we looked at that. We listened to people. We said, what will make a difference right away? What will put some money in people's pockets? What will make it possible for people to look over the horizon and say, we're going to be okay, it's going to get better. There's something to look forward to. So we turned around and said, you know, we can just cut PST altogether. Let's get rid of sales tax, and let's make it possible for British Columbians to have more money in their pocket immediately. So that's what we're standing for. We're standing for opportunity. We're standing for prosperity. We're standing for fairness for everybody in British Columbia, and we're standing for respect for the people of British Columbia, no matter where they live. Does that suit you? So I think we should all clear out of here before the RCMP show up. And some of you might want to go the escape route down through Spence's Bridge, because the ones going that way might get caught in a roadblock and have to pay some fines. But all kidding aside, it's great to see you folks here. This has never been done before. A political rally of motor vehicles, safely distanced. We're the movie in the drive-in theater, so I hope we're the right kind of couple you were looking for. No love story here. But right now, we've got to convert this horror story into a happy story, so that logging truck can continue to bring supplies to the mills in our towns to lead to the kind of prosperity that we need in this province after COVID. And we've got to start planning for it now. So even though John Horgan called this totally unnecessary election, the only reason he called it was because he could take advantage of the COVID bump and win it. Why would you call an election in the middle of a pandemic? Why would you expose people to infection? Why would you cause all this uncertainty? Why would you shut down government for 2.5 months when people need it most? But that's what he did. So we're going to do everything we can to do a better job. We're getting the word out through meetings like this, television, social media, you name it, whatever way we can to say, we think there's a better way for British Columbia. We want to restore your confidence and rebuild BC so everybody can go home and think, you know, it's going to be better in a couple of months. It's going to be better next year. No more doom and gloom. No more friends and enemies of the NDP. No more good guys and bad guys and figuring out whether you're rich or you're low income. We're all in this together, folks. We have to pull through this together. We have to build British Columbia, and we have to celebrate on a beautiful sunny day in the Nicola Valley with Jackie Taggart, MLA, and all of you. Thank you.